Balmain is one of the most fantastic places in Sydney. It's one of the oldest places in Sydney. A lot of people travel here for the pubs. Perfect place for Planet Cake, and we're right near the CBD and on the harbour. So it's really, really beautiful. It's a nice place.
And it offered us the room, which we did need, a huge amount of room, and this suited us totally.
My passion for cakes I didn't start out that way. Basically, I had an awful wedding cake. It was just horrible. That's actually how Anthony and I met, over the horrible wedding cake. And so I thought, let's see what we can do in this industry. And as soon as I started into it, I just loved it. So when you do couture cakes, every design is for the customer. Every designer cake is made for a particular person. So we take the dreams and hopes of that person and translate them into a visual edible product. And that's where the magic is. So the design is the first bit, then the execution. I'm a perfectionist, Anthony's a perfectionist. It has to be absolutely perfect, and we don't stop until it is.
Plus, of course, they taste delicious.
And the quality of the cakes is so high, we've recognised throughout the world. So we send cakes to Mexico, Hong Kong, we've just been approached to send cakes to Germany. We've got the largest cake school in the Southern Hemisphere and fabulous people who work here.
I think I've done about 8,500 drawings. It's just endless. A Vegemite cake, I can just keep going forever.
Planet Cake's now published 5 books, and it's probably the starting point before you come to the Planet Cake School. There's so many things that you can get started on at home. It sounds very complex, people get very serious, and it doesn't need to be. And this is something you could easily get started on, but it still looks amazing. So this is something that you can do at home. And Anna Marie is just starting off with a square cake.
Well, the first thing we do with our cake, we cut it in 3 layers. Then at Planet Cake we soak all our cakes. It keeps them nice and moist.
In case you're wondering what the syrup is, it's hot water, jam, like an apricot jam, and you can put a bit of alcohol in there as well. So this one has Grand Marnier in there, but you can put whatever you'd like. So you're setting up the cakes with ganache, which is chocolate and cream, which has been boiled and then whipped together. And one of the biggest problems with ganache is over mixing it, so aerating it too much. So this mixer actually has a timer on it, which is perfect. And we layer it quite thickly, actually, probably just underneath a centimetre. It's just going on like peanut butter. Probably should take you about 45 minutes to set up your cake like this.
So last layer on, I cut my cake in half. As we can see, it needs a little bit more length.
One of the most important things is to always use a firm cake. A lot of people ask us, can we use a sponge cake or a tiramisu? It's just not possible. So this is a chocolate mud cake, but you can also use a white chocolate cake, something like that, but something that's got a firm density to it.
It's perfect. We're gonna trim it.
So this is the top of the cake, so the handbag's going to be tapered down.
Now we're gonna turn it around. I add some ganache here. So now all the offcuts, I'm gonna cut this into slices. Again, ganache, just like a bricklayer. So the little offcuts as well, it's all gonna be utilized. So here we just cut off the peaks of the cakes. More ganache.
So the cake at the moment is upside down, and Anna Marie is actually finishing the bottom.
Before I put the template, I also need to put a tiny amount of ganache. Stick my template, making sure that it's actually centered. And now I'm gonna taper.
It's ready to become a handbag.
Yeah, it won't be long.
So you're using the templates as a guideline for how much ganache you're going to put on. And you use a hot knife for that.
Yes, I will.
And then she'll scrape it around to make sure it's absolutely smooth.
So it's good to work on a turntable as well. Okay, that goes in the fridge. Before I start rolling, I have to brush the cake. Because if there is no syrup, the icing will fall off.
But not too wet, because you'll end up with it so sticky that it's almost impossible to cover properly. So this is just corn flour. We don't use icing sugar because icing is actually hygroscopic. So what you'll find is that the rolled fondant icing will stick to the icing sugar and thus stick to the bench. We like to use quite a big heavy rolling pin, but it doesn't matter which type of rolling pin you use. So you only want the corn flour underneath the icing. You're not going to sprinkle the corn flour on top of it because obviously this icing part is going to be on top of the cake and you don't want it marked. And it's not really as unmanageable as what you think it would be. Anna Marie is basically just using an action like you would applying pizza dough. Here comes the exciting part. So this action is really important. It's not as difficult as it looks to roll the icing onto the rolling pin and then roll it straight over. Now Anna Maria's got to work really, really fast, and that means getting the icing on and covering as quickly as possible, because you can imagine if we have to take the icing off, we're going to have a lot of chocolate cake underneath, and you really just start from scratch. And this is usually done in about 2 to 3 minutes. If you take longer than that, the icing can dry. Now the way she is sealing the icing there is just with a warm hand. It's the same with any tears that you might have. If you warm it over with your hand, it should seal them. So she's moving on to using some icing smoothers. These are an essential tool of a cake decorator. One of the things that you can't get away with not having. Anna Maria is just about to do the quilting on the handbag. And this is what creates the quilting effect. So this is used on many, many cakes, a lot of wedding cakes. So now Anna Maria is using what we call a stitching tool, and this is basically bought in a haberdashery shop. There's no secret to it. It's really quite spectacular actually. Anna Maria's already decorated the cake, and that's just rolling out some black icing using a template and cutting it out. The templates are in the book. And what we're going to show you now is how we do the zipper, a realistic zipper on the top, and also how we do the handle. She's cut it with the pizza wheel, the ravioli cutter to create the zipper effect. It's edible gold powder, and it's mixed with cake decorators alcohol. But if you don't have decorating alcohol at home, you can just use vodka. All we need is just a tiny little bit of water, put in there with a little paintbrush, and the zipper is going to stick to the top of the cake. So here Anna Maria goes, and the zipper goes on. That's it. And this is us making the handle, which is interesting. This is actually a piece of aquarium tubing. So you could get this from the hardware store, and we've just put 2 dowels in there. She's just using some tweezers so she doesn't mark the cake when it goes down. So it's just about covering up that gap. Voila! Anna Maria's handbag cake. Even with her monogram on the side, you can do whatever you'd like, but it's ready to go.